attack, fast fatal heart impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and packs. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're just freaked out. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty, hello everyone. This is Kiru's show here. Now, whenever we last left off with this series, Deku and Mei are in the support course. And Midoriya was showing off some of the things he has built on the first day. Now, after the day of school, Midoriya does actually head out and go on his vigilante spree. With him being able to pull out any weapon he wants from this jacket, or really anything he wants that's made in the human world, it allows him greater access to anything. He can create guns, ammunition, and if he can think about it, and put his hand into his jacket, he found that he was able to recreate his father's K-bar. And it was actually pretty interesting. And very cool. As tonight, Midoriya does have a challenge. Whenever he does begin to work on a project inside of his house, he's raising his hand and checking to make sure he can actually move it, seeing if it fits or not. And this is whenever he continues working on it, before he suddenly just looks up, and the world changed around him. The angelic figure simply telling Midoriya that he must go out and hunt down the demons. They are doing something tonight. She does not have much information on it, but simply activate my mark, invoke my name, and tap into that power I have given you. It is connected to your very soul. Midoriya kinda confused, getting his guardian angel's name, and, well, trying to even pronounce it. As soon as he does, he simply finds that his eyes completely turned red, and whenever he looked into the mirror, a mark appeared on his forehead, as Midoriya simply leaves his house, sneaking out and fulfilling his mission. He's been hunting down demons. Every now and again, they pose as humans, they do whatever they want, and, quite simply, he's beginning to get a name for himself. In fact, quite a few of the demons, when they see his face, quite simply call him the Punisher. Others simply try and follow him, or run. Midoriya's kill count in the last week went from 486, well, I would say, to about 800. Midoriya was able to hunt down and take out quite a lot of other people. He doesn't have to worry about just using up all of his ammunition in one single night. In fact, it was quite interesting because on the news, they talked about the sudden drop in crimes and the sudden spike in murders. Imagine that. And bring up the idea that the Punisher is behind all of it. However, he's beginning to take his crusade a bit too seriously. Now, Midoriya does head out, and tonight he walks into a building, and there's quite a lot of people standing there. Some of them are human. and Midoriya simply just pulls down his bandana and puts his hands into his coat. As soon as someone begins to scream out his name, Midoriya simply just pulls them back and reveals two SMGs, which he just begins to fire. Whenever he needs to, he simply just clicks eject. The magazines drop and Midoriya throws them directly into his coat, before just pulling them back and revealing another magazine. He will just think that he's quickly reloading. Then again, the guy's pulling magazines out of nowhere. And Midoriya, he turned a van, quite simply, into, well, a shooting gallery, blasting away all these men, and some of them trying to use their quirks. You have a ginormous guy with a armor quirk, trying to run at Midoriya. Midoriya is seeing that the guy, he's not taking any of these bullets, bringing his hands into his coat and bringing them back up, and firing off more. As Midoriya simply fired armor-piercing rounds at the man. They do make contact with his skin, but the man just keeps shooting at Midoriya, who simply goes to throw a punch directly into his gut. Where the guy smashes it down into Midoriya's gut, the guy immediately just drops onto his hands and knees. His armored hand broken. The guy feels like he just punched into a steel wall, or a metal girder, and the kid didn't even move. Midoriya is simply just looking at the man, before grabbing him by his hair and just simply bashing him against his knee. Breaking the man's nose before Midoriya simply does one thing. Reaching into his coat, he pulls out a grenade, and he stuffs it into the man's mouth, and breaks his jaw, before simply just grabbing the pin and pulling it, and walking away from him. As many different people try to open fire on Midoriya. And, surprise, surprise, they watch as the Punisher just stands there, the man exploding behind him, and he simply does not react. Someone shot him directly in the forehead, and Midoriya, for pure shits and giggles, fell backwards. Whenever someone thought he was done, Midoriya just pulled out an assault rifle and began to fire. His new abilities are quite amazing, and some people begin to run. However, they do not get far. Midoriya used a car and chased them down, smashing it directly into theirs before sending them flying off of a bridge. And, well, they drowned in the river. Midoriya then taking off running, and simply jumping up high, being able to scale rooftops by simply just digging his fingers into the side, and testing his new abilities. Quite a lot of people do see this, as it is on the news that tonight they have a public sighting of the Punisher. The guy who usually hides in the back alleys and takes other ways around is seen in clear view. Midoriya is just pulling out something. He creates it out of regular material. He pulls out a skull face mask, and quite simply, as soon as he can, throws it over his head, before simply just looking up at the helicopter. And they see him. Midoriya's eyes simply reverting back, as he turns and starts running. The helicopter trying to catch up. As Midoriya steps off this ledge, as soon as his leg comes down and makes contact with it, he jumps far. And they watch as the Punisher leaped across a building, and simply smashed down onto it, before getting back up and doing the same thing. Midoriya reactivating this mark, and hauling ass. The chopper trying to keep up with him, along with pro heroes. Now, the pro hero Endeavor does actually try and catch up, and hearing that they have a vigilante, this does make him interested. But the guy is a murderer, and he has firearms, so they're going to have to take some special precautions. As Mr. Something also does send out a bit of his goons, trying to take down this young boy. At this point, he knows who it is. He's got a fairly good idea. The only reason why he knows is because sometime after that kid's parents, or the trial, his people suddenly began to disappear. Even then, the kid seemed to try and maintain a home life. But yeah, that doesn't really matter anymore, since apparently, after killing two of his guys and one of his men informing him that, hey, I met the Punisher one time, and I killed him, and the kid's still up and breathing, they can make connections. In fact, it's quite interesting whenever you consider what happens. Now, Midoriya does eventually evade the helicopters, and whenever he does make contact with a pro hero, yeah, they simply try and take him down. Let's say today he makes contact with Eraserhead. And Eraserhead, when Midoriya does go to run off or run past him, so he's just throwing him out of the way, whenever he does go to jump through the air, Eraserhead tries using his quirk. As soon as Midoriya leaps off, he goes across the building. And he does actually land. He doesn't land gracefully, since he's still trying to get used to this, but it was a bit better. He didn't smash onto the ground, or, well, hopefully, almost smash through the building itself, before he suddenly does turn around, and look directly at Eraserhead. Eraserhead confused, and trying to use his quirk, trying to erase the Punishers, to which Midoriya does one single thing. He puts his hand into his, well, jacket, and he pulls out several flashbangs, which he all has connected at his hands, simply just throwing them in every single direction, and the pins flying off of his fingers. Midoriya then just dropping the rings and turning, shielding his eyes, and covering his ears. As soon as all these bangs go off, everyone can't see. It's very bright. And all of a sudden, the Punisher disappeared. He jumped into the building, he jumped off of the building, and onto another one, then sliding into the alleyway, and hiding in a dumpster. Luckily, it was trash day, so it's partially empty. Now, after about an hour, Midoriya does get out, and do what his guardian angel asked him to do. Still, getting used to these abilities is weird, especially now that he can basically headbutt concrete into dust. But hey, he's not going to say no. Hell, is this how everyone with a quirk feels? This being very interesting. As Midoriya does go to walk away, and another hero does try and actually talk with him. They saw him, and they try to stop him. However, they're quite aware that he's packing heat at all times. So they wanted to talk, and try getting into close range. As soon as the hero tried to use their quirk, let's say it's some sort of, well, body elongation quirk, he tried to wrap around Midoriya, and Midoriya immediately basically just grabbed the man out of the air, or at least put his hands into his coat, and thought about shocking gloves that can shock someone. And as soon as he pulled his hands out, he was able to shock the man with electricity. And the man suddenly does fall to the ground. Midoriya telling him that he's a pro hero, and he's pretty sure that he's innocent. So he's not going to die tonight. Have fun in the morning. And then just walking away. Before going to hunt down the demons. And he does so. However, whenever he does encounter them, he does have harsher times. And he actually does get hurt. Whenever he did arrive, he began to blast away angelic weaponry, walking through the door with these two SMGs. These are beautiful looking guns. I wish I had some in real life. But anyways, back to the story. Midoriya walked in and immediately began to fire. As soon as one of them tried to blast Midoriya, Midoriya simply took the bullet. It hitting into his left shoulder. And Midoriya, realizing he's not completely indestructible. And whenever someone does try and fire off another shot, he jumps into cover. And, well, he's getting sloppy. He thought that just because he had all this weird power now, that he was completely indestructible. But he was wrong. So, as he then thinks of a good weapon, he knows the perfect one. Thinking of a angelic grenade, and pulling out a holy hand grenade, before pulling the pin on it and throwing it over. And a loud explosion does go off. Midoriya getting up and immediately pulling out a ginormous angelic rifle, and just begins to fire off over and over again. And using holy rounds, as I'll call it. Now, Midoriya does actually murder a lot of these demons, and then he tries to get some information from a few of them that he shot in the knees, or at least mortally wounded. Now, Midoriya does actually ask one a question, asking him exactly where is Mr. Something. The man not really wanting to reply. Midoriya then simply reaching into his coat, wondering if he can make it or not, pulling out and smiling at the fact that he just made a small beaker of acid, before pouring it onto the man's leg, and into the bullet wound. As he begins to eat away at his flesh, the man somewhat begins to scream, and Midoriya simply tells him to talk. He is not sure if holy acid is going to work again, but hey, he can at least experiment, see where that fine line between pain and simple tricks don't stop. You know, it would actually be very interesting. Even with these new abilities, I still find it a bit hard to believe that just that one bullet hurt me. In fact, hang on. Midoriya pulling his knife and simply digging it into his shoulder. The demon simply watching as Midoriya pops the bullet clean out. And his face barely showed any discomfort. Midoriya might as well be picking something out of his teeth. And the demon, yeah. They saw that and they did not know how to respond. Midoriya is suddenly telling them to give up information. Before, there is a loud gunshot. And Midoriya, he has a bullet whisk into his back. Him suddenly just dropping the demon and turning around. Walking over and kicking the demon who shot him in the face. Taking the gun and beating them to death with it. Turning back around and seeing that this demon took flight and flew out the window. Yeah, that's not good. So, this means something's gonna happen, isn't it? Well, let the chase begin. Midoriya running after it, and jumping across rooftops, still trying to get accustomed to his new power. As whenever he directly does get behind it, he begins to blast away at it, trying to blast a hole in its wings. And he gets a hole. He shoots it in one of its hands, and part of the wing does fall off. Midoriya watches as it smashes down onto a rooftop. And he simply rephrases his question, before having to kill the demon, and head home. Now, Midoriya thinks that the bullet will simply just come out if he lets his body heal. It's gotta force it out, right? Yeah. He's probably gonna have trouble getting that out of there, but he'll figure it out. Simply think that he can try getting a mirror and looking at it. However, whenever he does get home and go into the bathroom and tries to pull this thing out, it's difficult, and it's harder. And his body, whenever he even tries to, well, turn off these abilities, it does not help at all. The thing suddenly just starts to hurt more, and he can't even really reach deep enough to pull it out, as he basically just tries to get some sleep. And the next day, Midoriya is in class, tired, and he looks a little sick. Suddenly trying to work on some projects, and, well, yeah, people clearly see that he looks worse for wear. And after school, him and May are still working in the support gear lab, or the support course lab, where everyone has their own projects. Midoriya is still trying to perfect these gauntlets, and actually moving up and starting to build parts upwards towards his arm. Midoriya simply just tinkering with this, and asking May exactly what is she doing. To which she is building her gear for the sports festival that is coming up. Asking Midoriya about his own stuff. Him giving her an answer. Before he just tries to move and he winces in pain. And May does actually get, well, notice that. That sound was a painful grunt. And turning, she sees at the back of Midoriya's shirt, he has a bit of red in that spot. And she does ask him about it. Asking if he, well, sat on something or spilled something on his shirt whenever he was at lunch. Midoriya not really saying anything, and trying to focus. Before standing up and trying to walk home. Now, Midoriya, he doesn't even really get out the door. He's not even walking in a straight line. Her simply just watching as he fell to the ground after he opened the door. And whenever she did walk over and see what was wrong with him, she pulled at the back of his shirt, revealing a bullet wound. Yeah, that does not look good. Nor does it look healthy. And she tries to tell Midoriya that she's going to take him to a hospital. Midoriya refusing, telling her not to do that. If he goes to the hospital, he's going to have a lot of unexplained injuries to try to explain. What the hell? What do you mean? Listen, just hang on. Midoriya saying the angel's name. May heard nothing but some high-pitched whistle. While Midoriya, he simply was able to actually stand on his feet for a second, and his strength somewhat returned to him. And he began to walk to the nurse's office, with her behind him. Her simply just asking if he's doing some sort of bio-enhancement or something. He's up and about with a bullet wound in his back, and her questions just keep going on and on and on. And whenever they do arrive in the nurse's office, luckily Recovery Girl is not here. Oh, thank God. Now, Midoriya then at least looks around a bit, finding proper medical equipment that he can probably use to remove this thing. And he does actually pull off his shirt. May, simply just watching as Midoriya turns around and looks in the mirror, and tries to pull the bullet out of his back. That's simply just not working. And Midoriya, anytime he does stick the tweezers in there, or these long pair of tweezers, and try to grab it, he somewhat just grunts in pain. And it doesn't work. May is just asking him what is he doing. He should be stitching that up. Midoriya then going on to say that the bullet is still in there. Bullet? Wait, so you were shot? Yeah, not really a lot of time to explain that. Anyways, listen, I know this is gonna sound weird, but can I get a helping hand? Yeah, but if I help you, can you at least give me an explanation? Sure. I can also try and explain something. And besides, if you don't tell anyone about this, I will show you something amazing, and I'll help you create anything you want. Really? Wait, so even the designs for yes, especially that. That one, I really want to try and build. Her somewhat just letting out a, well, fangirl scream. Midoriya trying to calm her down, and telling her that she's going to need steady hands to do this. Her suddenly just taking off her gloves, and walking over and washing off all of the oil on her hands, and getting them clean. Before she does walk over and try and help Midoriya, simply just asking if he needs anything for the pain. Him simply just responding with no. First off, he won't need it. Second, if they take anything from here and Recovery Girl tries taking inventory, then it probably won't add up, and it's going to be suspicious, so just take it out. Her trying to do so. Midoriya basically just biting down on something. Well, let's say a towel, or a piece of cloth. As she's digging into the back, well, Midoriya's back, into his side. And she actually does have to, well, this is gonna sound very weird. She does have to basically move these things outwards, so as to open the wound up a bit more, so that she can actually get a grip on it and pull it out, since part of this thing has been healing. As soon as she is able to get a good grip on it, she tells Midoriya to simply take a deep breath in. She's gonna go on the count of 3. As soon as Midoriya takes in that deep breath, she just yanks it out, pulls it out as hard as she can. And Midoriya, he actually barely flinches. And she just drops it down into a sink, simply just asking exactly what that is. And Midoriya does have to try and explain it, basically giving her the gist of he doesn't really know. And she then asks if he was going to need a bandage, trying to hold it up, and give it to Midoriya. Midoriya just getting a bunch of paper towels and putting it over the wound, before walking back over to the support department, and getting a blowtorch. May suddenly just watching as Midoriya, whenever he does remove the paper towels, he immediately cauterizes the wound, and then sets it down. Setting down the blowtorch, walking over, and throwing away the paper towels. And, well, after cleaning up the mess, and taking out the trash, getting the bullet out of the sink and rinsing it, he basically does try and explain this to her. And, well, all the other numerous wounds on his body, they somewhat do seem to coincide with Punisher sightings, and or ways he has gotten hurt. Midoriya having to explain to her that after his parents were murdered, he killed the man who did it. Her not really believing him. However, Midoriya then goes on stating, he did kill the man. He buried the man in a coffin, then filled it with water, and the man drowned. Now, he's going to explain to her something that's going to be very, very weird. I died last week. Okay. And I was then brought back to life by an angel, my guardian angel. You're not making any sense about that, actually. Okay. My guardian angel brought me back from the dead, so that I can stop an army of demons from trying to take over the earth. I know it sounds crazy, but just watch. Midoriya doing one thing, putting his hands behind his back and pulling out 2 devices. Simply just saying that he was given an ability, and that this is not a quirk. Simply asking her if she needs anything right now. Anything made of metal or machinery. Or simply just saying that she's going to need him to create something then. Asking for a duplicate of the gauntlets he created. Him instantly doing so. And surprising her. Her trying to think of a scientific explanation for this. He is quirkless, but then again he just admitted to her that he is the Punisher. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.